Hello, and welcome to my channel, English Waves. This is a new episode we have created for you to enjoy listening to and pondering. Today, I want to talk about something deeply personal, yet universally relatable. How our childhood experiences shape the adults we become. Whether we realize it or not, those early years leave fingerprints all over our current lives, influencing everything from how we handle stress to how we form relationships.
Let me start with what science tells us. There's this concept in psychology called attachment theory, developed by John Bowlby in the 1950s. Bowlby discovered that the bonds we form with our primary caregivers in childhood create a template for all future relationships. If you had consistent, loving care, you likely developed what's called secure attachment. You trust others, you're comfortable with intimacy, and you can handle being alone. But if your early environment was unpredictable or neglectful, you might struggle with relationships today. Maybe you're anxiously attached, constantly seeking reassurance. Or perhaps you're avoidantly attached, keeping people at arm's length to protect yourself. The fascinating part? Brain imaging studies show that childhood experiences literally shape our neural pathways. Dr. Bruce Perry, in his book, What Happened to You, co-written with Oprah Winfrey, explains that repeated childhood experiences create patterns in the brain that become our default responses. A child who grows up in chaos develops a brain wired for hypervigilance. A child raised with encouragement develops neural pathways for resilience. Let me share some real-life examples that illustrate this powerfully. Take Oprah Winfrey herself. She's been open about her traumatic childhood, poverty, abuse, instability. Yet she credits a few key figures, particularly her grandmother and a fourth-grade teacher, Mrs. Duncan, with showing her that a different life was possible. Those small moments of being seen and valued planted seeds that eventually grew into her life's work of helping others feel heard and valued. Let me share some real-life examples that illustrate this powerfully. Take Oprah Winfrey herself. She's been open about her traumatic childhood, poverty, abuse, instability. Yet she credits a few key figures, particularly her grandmother and a fourth-grade teacher, Mrs. Duncan, with showing her that a different life was possible. Those small moments of being seen and valued planted seeds that eventually grew into her life's work of helping others feel heard and valued. Or consider Andre Agassi, the tennis champion. In his memoir, Open, he reveals that he hated tennis, the sport that made him famous. His father was obsessively controlling, forcing him to practice for hours as a child. As an adult, Agassi struggled with authenticity and self-identity. He writes, "My father says that if I hit 2,500 balls each day, I'll hit 17,500 balls each week. And at the end of 1 year, I'll have hit nearly 1 million balls. He believes in math. Numbers, he says, don't lie." That childhood pressure created both his extraordinary success and his internal torment. It's a perfect example of how childhood experiences can be both a gift and a burden. But you don't need dramatic stories to see this pattern. Think about everyday behaviors. Do you apologize constantly, even when nothing's your fault? That might trace back to a childhood where you learned to keep the peace or take responsibility for others' emotions. Are you a perfectionist who can't start projects unless conditions are ideal? Perhaps you internalize messages that mistakes weren't acceptable or that love was conditional on achievement. Do you struggle to spend money on yourself even when you can afford it? Many people raised in scarcity carry that scarcity mindset long after their circumstances change. Psychologist Tara Brach talks about this in her book, Radical Acceptance. She describes the trance of unworthiness, that core feeling many of us carry that we're somehow not enough. And where does it come from? Usually from those early years when we internalized messages about our worth. often unintentionally transmitted by well-meaning parents who were dealing with their own wounds. Here's the thing, and this is really important. Understanding how childhood shaped us isn't about blame. It's about awareness and choice. Dr. Gabor Mate, in The Myth of Normal, emphasizes that we're not condemned to repeat our childhood patterns. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new neural connections, means we can rewire ourselves. But first, we have to see the patterns. I've personally noticed patterns in my own life. The way I respond to criticism, for instance, or how I handle uncertainty. These responses make so much more sense when I trace them back to specific childhood experiences and the coping mechanisms I developed back then. The work isn't about achieving some perfect state where childhood no longer influences us. That's impossible and probably not even desirable. Not all childhood influences are negative. Instead, it's about bringing awareness to which patterns serve us and which don't.
One of the most powerful aspects of understanding our childhood's influence is that it allows us to break generational cycles. When you recognize that your parents' anger wasn't about you, but about their own unhealed wounds, you can choose a different path. There's a beautiful concept in therapy called reparenting, essentially giving yourself now what you needed but didn't get as a child. If you needed more encouragement, you can become that encouraging voice for yourself. If you needed someone to validate your feelings, you can learn to validate yourself. James Baldwin wrote, "Children have never been very good at listening to their elders, but they have never failed to imitate them." We learn by watching and experiencing, and now, as adults, we have the power to decide what will pass on and what stops with us.
So, here's my question for you. What patterns do you notice in your life that might trace back to childhood? I'm not suggesting you spend years in analysis, though therapy can be incredibly helpful. I'm just inviting you to get curious. Maybe journal about it. Maybe have a conversation with someone who knew you as a child. Maybe just sit quietly and notice when you have a disproportionate reaction to something small and ask yourself, what does this remind me of? Our childhoods don't determine our destinies, but they do influence our starting points. And the more aware we become of those influences, the more choice we have in who we become. Thanks for listening today. I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences on this topic because we're all in this human experience together, trying to understand ourselves a little better each day. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.